Good morning, I'm Craig DeGrelli. It's Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025, and these are your Unbiased Updates. The man accused of firebombing a pro-Jewish rally in Colorado now talking, what he told investigators, and why he says he'd do it again. Plus, Zelenskyy calls it a savage strike, a deadly new attack in Ukraine this morning. Now he's urging the United States to act fast. And Mount Etna just lit up the Sicilian sky again. The ash, the lava, and why this fiery spectacle might be the new normal. The stories that matter, clear and credible, from across the country to around the world. These are your unbiased updates from Straight Arrow News. The details just keep getting more stunning. Investigators now say 12 people were injured after a man used a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails to attack a weekly demonstration in Boulder, Colorado, and people advocating for Israeli hostages in Gaza. And we're learning even more about how long he planned it and why he waited. Police say the suspect, 45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Soliman, is an Egyptian national who overstayed a work visa and was living in the U.S. illegally. He was disguised as a gardener when he approached the crowd, shouted "Free Palestine" on Sunday, and threw 2 Molotov cocktails. Court documents indicate Soliman had been planning the attack for more than a year, but waited until after his daughter's high school graduation last week to act. They say he targeted what he called a Zionist group and was armed with 18 Molotov cocktails, but used just 2 after he, quote, got scared.
And when he was interviewed about the attack, he said he wanted them all to die. He had no regrets, and he would go back and do it again. He said that he had previously tried to purchase a firearm, but resorted to the Molotov cocktails when he could not purchase a gun because he was not a legal citizen.
President Trump weighed in on Monday, writing on his Truth Social platform, "This is yet another example of why we must keep our borders secure and deport illegal anti-American radicals from our homeland." Soliman is now facing a federal hate crime charge, along with 16 counts of attempted first-degree murder and other state charges in Colorado. Now to some breaking news this morning. A Russian rocket attack has hit a residential street in the Ukrainian city of Sumy. 2 people are dead and at least 7 more injured, including children. Rescue crews are still on the scene. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says on X it was a deliberate strike, calling it a savage attack on civilians with rockets hitting ordinary neighborhoods. He's once again urging the United States and Europe to ramp up pressure on Vladimir Putin, warning that without global action, a ceasefire deal is off the table. The attack comes just hours after Ukraine and Russia met in Istanbul for a new round of peace talks, their second in 2 weeks. So far, no breakthrough, just an agreement to swap wounded prisoners and the bodies of fallen soldiers. Another deadly scene this morning at an aid line in Gaza. At least 27 Palestinians were killed near a goods distribution site in the southern city of Rafah. More than 90 injured. The 3rd straight day of bloodshed tied to the controversial operation. The Israeli military says troops opened fire after a group approached from outside designated access routes. The Red Cross says 184 people were brought to a nearby field hospital. 27 of them died. The site is run by the U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a private aid group endorsed by Israel, but criticized by the United Nations for bypassing traditional relief channels. This comes as Israel expands evacuation orders across southern Gaza with warnings to flee Khan Yunis. The UN says there are no safe zones left in the enclave. In South Korea, a fast transfer of power. The winner of today's presidential election will be sworn in tomorrow. No 2-month transition. Frontrunner Lee Jae-myung led the push to oust President Yoon Suk-yeol after Yoon declared martial law last December. Lee rallied lawmakers to overturn the order and moved to have Yoon impeached. His main rival, conservative Kim Moon-soo, a self-proclaimed unifier and former activist who once served prison time for anti-government protests. The U.S. is watching closely. Nearly 30,000 American troops remain stationed in South Korea, home to the largest U.S. base overseas. President Trump has stated he wants South Korea to pay more for that military protection. Tourists in Italy got more than they bargained for when the iconic Mount Etna roared to life, blasting a massive plume of ash into the sky. A spectacular scene that was caught on camera. Take a look. The eruption unfolded Monday. Ash shot more than 21,000 feet into the air. What a vantage point here. Look at this guy with the camera, right? Can you imagine the great still pictures you would get just standing there? That would be fascinating. It formed a giant mushroom cloud over Europe's most active volcano. Italy's National Volcanology Institute says the eruption appears to be linked to a partial collapse of the crater. No injuries reported, so that's good, but officials did shut down tourist access to the summit, a popular spot on Sicily's east coast. Etna is no stranger to eruptions. The volcano has rumbled to life at least once a year in recent memory, making this latest event spectacular, but not unusual. Finally this morning, remember these little gals? They looked a lot different when we met them in March. This is Gizmo and Sunny, the two bald eagle babies whose hatching captivated the internet back in March, now looking a lot more grown up. On Monday, Sunny took her first flight, leaving the nest solo after days of practice. A big milestone for the 13-week-old siblings. Gizmo, well, stuck around to supervise, you could say, not quite ready to spread her wings. But experts say it won't be long now. Their proud parents, Jackie and Shadow, made headlines earlier this year when millions tuned into a live cam waiting for the chicks to hatch in Big Bear Valley, California. Wow. Reminds me of 2011. I went up to Decorah, Iowa, where they had a similar setup, an international webcam with these bald eagles who had eaglets. It was fascinating. What struck me was the eagles make this nest and they work so hard at it, it's more like a tree fort. It wasn't on my bucket list, but nearly 15 years later, I still remember it. What a great trip. Those are your Unbiased Updates for Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. For all of us here at Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig DeGrelli. Have a great day.